All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our special legislative session. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. That's
Madam Chair, let me just make sure Mr. Kaufman has recording started.
Yes, yeah. He started it. I heard it.
Yeah. All right, cool.
Yeah, he just started. Okay, so we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Blitzstein.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Blitzstein. And also the statement of acknowledgement and honor of Indigenous and diverse communities.
We begin this meeting with acknowledgement of and honor for the many legacies that have impacted our community, particularly those buried over time. Acknowledging truth is critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. Cheltenham Township stands with the Lenape-Hoking, the ancestral homeland of the Lenni Lenape civilization. Their people were, and still are, caretakers of this land and its rivers, and their legacy continues. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Our community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in the hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together. As a school district committed to fostering intellectual curiosity and discourse in service of social justice, join us in uncovering such truths.
Thank you, Ms. Blitzstein. Ms. Harding will do the roll call.
Ms. Blitzstein.
Present.
Mr. Burdell-Williams.
Present.
Mr. Epps.
Present.
Ms. Henry.
Present.
Ms. Lohman.
Ms. Lohman is not here today.
Ms. Mulhern.
Present.
Ms. Murphy. Mr. Schultz.
Present.
And Dr. Whiting.
Present.
Thank you. That concludes the roll call.
Thank you, Ms. Harding.
You're welcome.
Now we have procedures for public comments. If there is, I see one person attending. If you
Ms. Henry, before we go into public comment, if I could just announce the executive session that's going to follow this meeting so that we don't, so that we get that on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Diazio.
Yes, so I will announce that the board is going to meet an executive session immediately following this public meeting this afternoon. And the topic of the executive session is going to be collective bargaining with the CEA bargaining unit.
Thank you, Mr. Diazio. I don't see any hands raised. If there are any community members, they can email us at csdboardmeetings comments@cheltenham.org. And we will move on to the approval of agenda items. So we're here this afternoon to adopt the 2024-2025 final budget and tax levy. And it is listed on the agenda. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Zachary Epps.
Is there a second?
Or I'll second Charles' motion. Okay.
No, Zachary's got it. I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams. Second. Are there any comments for the board before we take the vote? And Mr. Schultz, I see your hand raised.
Just a clarifying question. Could administration say what is the percentage increase that this represents in terms of millage?
Mr. Swigert, I see you talking, but we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Excellent. And one of 4 mics I had to choose from. So the millage rate listed represents approximately 1.47% increase over the prior year in tax rate.
Thank you, Mr. Swigert.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to offer some context for anybody who's either watching the stream or views this later, that percentage increase is a representation of basic increases to our transportation contract, to our previously negotiated contracts and the like. And we've talked about our budget for a couple months in a row, and cost of living overall is a fairly larger percentage in terms of what the Act 1 index allows. And so this percentage, although any percentage increase does represent additional burden to our taxpayers, and we're very cognizant of that, this is a reflection of a lot of time and energy spent by Mr. Swigart and the rest of administration, as well as the board, to keep our costs under control and be as effective as possible as a district. So I just wanted to vocalize some thanks for that. I also wanted to highlight that once taken into account the additional Homestead Act funding this year, the total impact on our residents is going to end up being the net effect from a pocketbook perspective, less than 1% increase in costs. So thank you again, and looking forward to continuing our trajectory of being very thoughtful about our tax increases and being in the lowest quartile compared to our neighbors in Montgomery County.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. And before Mr. Epps, I call on you. Ms. Harding, can you scroll down a little bit so we can see all 4 items that we're voting on? Okay, so I wanted to make a notation that we are voting on all 4 items that are on the agenda, which relate to the budget. So I just wanted to make that clarification also. That is for all those items that are listed. Mr. Epps?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I appreciate the context that Mr. Schultz added. Also wanted to, for the record, express appreciation and official commendation for the administration. I think, if folks have been following and forever who views this in the future, we are deciding on our budget before other major decisions that are made that impact our district. And so this is not an easy decision. It takes a lot of research. It takes a lot of diligence. And so I do have today confidence that we're voting on a budget that represents, one, our fiduciary responsibility to be good stewards, but also that invests in the students' experience and those who support our students in different ways. And we've heard about specifically those ways over the last few months. And then while we know that the House of Representatives did pass a budget that funded a lot of the governor's original proposal, we're still at a place where we are unsure about what funding will look like from a state level. And so as we go forward, while we are voting on an increase in taxes this year, as state funds come, we'll hopefully be able to make a determination of what next year looks like based upon what will hopefully be increased funding and consistent funding from our Commonwealth. So again, I wanted to point out the lived experience that is impacted by this budget in ways from mental health to academics to how we support students who haven't succeeded on the non-traditional track. So I appreciate that we can talk about those things in real ways as we consider the budget today.
Thank you, Mr. Epps. Mr. Burdell Williams, I see your hand raised.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Chair, and both +1 to the comments of Mr. Schultz and Mr. Epps, specifically highlighting the challenges of passing a budget locally where there's been such a vacillation in the feedback that we've been getting from our state legislature on their budget and the challenge in doing so. And I just wanted to again, also show appreciation for the work that requires, because it does make even the approval process that much more difficult, because there are questions that this board asks specifically of the administration, and then the administration is also asking of the state funding unit and allocations as well, that are currently unanswered, right? And that, in a way, creates some amount of discomfort, but appreciate the work that went into getting us to this point, and glad that we're here, and that the budget does also, again, in not to repeat what my colleagues have already shared, does, in my opinion, as one board member, represent a very fiscally responsible budget that I believe serves our school district as well as the taxpayers of our township. It is something that, does not pass me. It is a topic that is consistently in conversation with my neighbors and other community members who have supported my opportunity to be here supporting this board. And I, as such, am happy to be supporting this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burdell Williams. I'll now call for an individual voice vote, and I'll call on you as I see you on my screen. Mr. Whiting?
Aye.
Ms. Mulhern?
Aye.
Ms. Blitzstein?
Aye.
Mr. Burdell Williams?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Mr. Epps?
Aye.
And Pamela Henry? I am an aye. The motion carries. We will now move on to public comments on non-agenda items. If the attendee has any comments or questions, you can raise your hand and you will be unmuted. If there are community members who are watching otherwise, you can email CSD board meeting comments at cheltenham.org. Okay. We will move on to the next item, which are our future meetings. They are listed on the agenda. And I will call for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved, Mia Blitzstein.
Second.
Ms. Mulhern, second. Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.